22nd verse, the sage who wears a shawl made out of street rags, whose path transcends punya, apunya, whose mind is established in yoga, well united to yoga, revels just like a child, like a madman. So the first half of the verse, which spoke about how a sage lives on the principle of maximum giving, minimum aggrandizing, but yet the law of life is the more you give, the more you get. But his spirit is not to grab or aggrandize. His spirit is to give. That is symbolized by wearing street rags, obviously not to be taken literally. And then we have studied considerably in detail the path which transcends the merit and demerit. A path which is beyond that which accrues good or bad. A path which is driven on the spirit of performing your bounden duty, a duty which you have to be mindful of. The various duties that keep coming when you just perform them, whether it be regular duties or whether it be occasional duties. You don't attach any appendage or motive to that act, just done because it ought to be done. Such actions are the path beyond the punya and apunya. And that's a relative level. Absolute level, when you perform action for the sole purpose of self-unfoldment or self-realization, actions are of selfless nature. And then he said, whose mind is well united to yoga. This is the state you are in, irrespective of whatever action you're performing. The mind is well united to the self. So it never loses its purpose, because it's very important that the intellect is able to constantly remind you of the goal. Because many a time, what happens is the mind draws you away from the chosen path. It happens to all of us. And we go off track and we keep coming back to the track. It could be a simple thing like whether you're conscious of your health. If health is your priority, do you do everything that is in the interest of your health? I think there is something called as cheat days, isn't it? Huh? So you gave yourself the license of, chalo yaar, it's okay. I have done too much. I can do a little pampering to myself. Huh? I can give what it wants. I can go a little little, pamper it, cater to it. In fact, destroy it little. Again, I'll patch it up the rest of the week. You're letting go of your alertness. You're letting go of your guard. You're letting go of your own well-being. Now, who needs cheat days? Only those who are frustrated because they are not able to manage their mind, because they are trying to forcibly withdraw it from something they like to do, they love to do, they have a passion for, they have a desire for. So that's the reason, in race courses, you have these horses which have these blinkers on. So the blinkers on is what the verse is talking about. Whose mind is well united to yoga. Means once it's lodged onto that, once it's hooked onto that, then it's difficult to dislodge it. It's like, when a locomotive, when the entire chain of carriages have to be hooked onto the locomotive for it to pull it forward. So the locomotive here is the goal or an ideal, perhaps. And that, I don't know how you interpret it. If the intellect could be the locomotive, the hook could be the goal, whatever it is. But you identify what I'm saying is, once that locomotive gets hooked onto that carriages, then no way the carriages will be left behind. Everything will go in the direction set by where the locomotive goes, isn't it? So once the intellect is set, or perhaps the locomotive itself is the intellect, and it's set on the goal, and everything follows thereafter. It doesn't, not the one carriage, S9 has decided to go its own way. Huh? How is that possible? S9 can go its own way. S1 to S8 followed, S9 went its way. That's never possible, isn't it? Once everything is hooked on, it shall follow the direction set into motion by the intellect. So everything will follow in that direction. And that depends purely on the strength of your intellect. And you know the strength of your intellect. And we have mentioned that strength of the intellect is measured. One powerful way is to see what control you have over your own mental, all the various aspects of the mind, the mental qualities. So how much you exercise a control over it really gives you an idea how much intellect you have on you. And that reflects whether you have established yourself to yoga. And then lastly, where is Sriniji? He's not there today. Paul. Huh?
He'll be a little late.
Okay, then we'll postpone this concept until he comes. RPG, what do you suggest? Whatever RPG suggests, then because then he's be answerable to Srini. I am open to do that.
Inappropriate for me to suggest anything.
I'm sorry?
It would be inappropriate for me to suggest anything.
No, it's your dear friend.
I don't want that response.
How can you be so cold to your dear friend?
Not cold, actually. I'm looking out for him.
Yeah, then you should say, Guruji, I think you're right. We should hold on to this concept until he comes, Never mind. It's all right, RPG.
Yeah. I don't think I can win either way, Guruji.
Yeah. No, there's no winning or losing. So this the last section of the verse. It talks about, he compares a spiritual man who lives up to these principles. He calls him, he says, Balavat. He says he's like a child. Now, there are certain attributes of any comparison. Whenever you take an example or any comparison, you must be mindful that you draw only those relevant to the context of comparison. Beyond a point, the example becomes redundant. Beyond a point, the example is absurd. You go into absurdities, then it defeats the very purpose of comparing. Comparing only helps us to understand something which cannot be communicated directly. So the methodology of using examples or comparison is known as Upama. The methodology of teaching this knowledge is known as upamana or upama, and that is being adopted here, which is very much a methodology which the Adi Shankaracharya engages in Atma Bodha. The text we are studying, every mantra he says, there is an example. Like even the Gita class, which we did yesterday morning, he compares the nature of the mind to be like the wind. He says, mind is like the wind. If you don't know what the mind is, if you understand what is the nature of the wind, example, we were trying to understand, he says, mind is turbulent. And he said, what is turbulent? He says, just like the wind is turbulent, the wind can uproot a tree, can rock a mighty ship. That's the power of the wind, that it can become devastating. It can cause great damage. It can cause havoc. Exactly, a mind which is not governed can become destructive in nature. So like that, he compares a spiritual man to a child. Now, what are the comparison of a spiritual man? A spiritual man, firstly, is full of energy. They are bubbling with cheer. They're bubbling with enthusiasm. They are full of life and energy. And if you look at life of Lord Krishna, he was such an example, wasn't he? All through his life was full of mischief, full of fun, full of frolic. Never ever would he have taken opportunity to have been mischievous. So that cheeky attitude, sort of, have that attitude where you want to, you're full of vibrance and laughter and cheer and fun and frolic. In the most serious things, you are able to have that spirit of lightheartedness. And where does that come from? How does that come from? Where does it come? The capacity to be full of energy, cheer, fun. Where does it come from? Haresh, any idea?
Hariam Guruji.
Yes, Hariam ji.
I'm not sure, Guruji.
You can't pass it with a smile like that. I know I'll fall for your smile, but still you can't pass it like that. Huh? This is how you've been conquering me all the while. Now I know. Huh?
It's not that.
See, all of you see, this is how he's been conquering me. Anytime I angry with me also, he'll laugh and smile like that, and then I will not be able to say anything. I'm completely floored. Huh?
Not at all.
What is that? Fair enough, Harish, no problem. What is that quality? Totagaru, Chapan sir. Namaskaram.
I'm not quite sure, but it's seemed like an eternal energy that exposes.
Now, as I can understand that, see, the difficulty we are trying to understand is the concept. So it makes, as I've just clarified, it becomes easier if you analyze the example. So if you analyze, why is it a child full of energy, a child never gets tired, and a child is always with some mischief. You will never find a child seriously studying, a 6-year-old child or 10-year-old child seriously studying. He's full, he wants to do some mischief, he wants to do something, he wants to be running around. You'll never find them contemplating and trying to see what is that Brahman and Atman, what is the difference between what teacher told me last week. I have not been able to go to heaven with what teacher said. I am in my own merry world, not bothered. Exam is coming tomorrow, whether I have failed, mother is beating me. I am in my jolly good world. Have fun, man. Friends are calling, raining, let me go and have fun. That is the kind of a life a child has, isn't it? Why does a child have that? Which is comparable to a spiritual man. So if you analyze the child, you will get a cue from that. Could you do that, G? Where does a child get energy from? Maybe, you know, the protein and the vitamins, maybe, you know. Please don't say that. Huh? Fair enough, Totagaru. Any thoughts? You have actually again been muted.
Again, I'm not exactly sure, but child has no worries. He's not dragged down any entanglements. He's not bound to anything. He's free.
Perfect. That's it. That's it. This is what I'm looking at. You actually put it so beautifully. The child is actually not entangled with anything. So a child is actually ever liberated because of there are no mental bondages. Beautiful. Actually, you put it very beautifully. But see, this is what the help of comparison is. When you analyze the example, you borrow that aspect and you project it onto a spiritual man, as the verse says. So what is the trait of a spiritual man? If you understand further, a spiritual man has no worries and anxieties. I may have no food to eat. You know, there were times there was no enough funds to pay the basic expenses. How does it matter? How does it matter? So many things going on. There are no enough funds. How does it matter? Not that you are unmindful of it. I know things needs to go on. There's so many things that's happening. Why should I sit and worry about it? But then you can't say, are you also very careless like a child, irresponsible? You can't take that aspect of a child and project on a spiritual man. Then you go into absurdities. Then you're trying to tarnish that spiritual stage of an evolved person. A spiritual man is not that he's irresponsible. It's not that he's not mindful. It's just that it doesn't allow anything happening external to have a toll on his mental state. So he's mentally ever free, ever liberated. And where does that energy go? All that energy has to be expended somewhere, has to be dispensed somewhere. It is only in the present, full of energy. Can't tie a child down to anything. All the time running and running and running. Now you get tired looking at a child. Where you get that bony personality of God? Where do you get that energy from? And you're cursing the child because you can't handle the energy of the child. Looking at that fellow, you are tired. Why? Go worrying, anxious of what's to happen, worried of what happened, unnecessarily getting excited. So this is an attribute which a spiritual man exhibits. This is easier, in fact, relatively. Now, the next he says, he compares him to a madman. Unmattavat. This is a difficult thing. Balavat, you can understand, we can escape. Unmattavat, please don't go about saying spiritual people are completely cuckoos. 100% guaranteed mental cuckoos there. Mad fellows there. In fact, Western critics, I don't know who said that, Western critics have commented their opinions of Vedic teachings, Upanishadic masters. They said it's blabbering of humanity in early childhood. Something to that effect. They're all mad fellows talking something. I know, I do not know, not that I do not know. No, a small fellow, a child will blabber. And you fellows are trying to make sense of some blabbering of humanity in early childhood. That was an opinion of a Western, a very, very renowned Western philosopher. His opinion on Upanishads, which we consider as the very source of our Vedantic wisdom. So there are people who really think that these fellows need to be put in their place. Chumma, they're doing too much of drama out there. They're taking misleading, misguiding mankind. Now, that is not the case, to be pleased. Now, if I can ask Surendra Garu, So you keep appearing and disappearing. I don't know whether you're there or not there. But
yes, sir. Here. Pranam Guruji.
Namaskaram, sir. Sir,
how are you, sir?
very well, sir. You look very different today, sir.
It's Sunday evening and I'm not on call, which is unusual.
Yeah, the only time we have connected is Sunday evenings, but this Sunday you look different, I'm saying.
So I am often on call, so I have a difficult time joining the discourses.
Fair
and
enough. Absolutely. No, it's perfectly understandable, but glad you could make it whenever.
Your thread sometimes. I enjoy talking to you, sir.
Yeah, look forward. So what insight you can throw onto this comparison of a spiritual man to a mad person?
So the word comes to my mind is virya. That is one of the set sampats that Devi Lakshmi can bestow upon you. And the spiritual strength is also represented by Lord Hanuman. The spiritual strength is immense once you really become surrendered. So you don't do anything for your own sake, but somebody else's sake. Your strength becomes immense. And previous discussion of childhood and childish and childlike, Swami Jyotirmananda makes a distinction between childlike, was incredible amount of energy, with a childish who does all kinds of foolish things. So in the childlike comparison, sir, you made, the child is behaving that way, full of energy, is because he understands intuitively that there is some other system supporting parents and everything else. And it doesn't, so if we become like that, not have the ego think that you are in charge, there is another support system. There's a greater support system, which we call Brahman, God, whatever. If you surrender to that system and you're working within that system, you can get to that sense. You're limitless. You're not constrained. I hope that explains. I do want to make one request, Guruji.
Yes,
the men in your audience are often silent. And I personally feel that women intuitively know what we're all talking about without talking about it. Because they give up of themselves at various stages of life without asking for a reward in many different ways. And they kind of know what this is. So I'd like to hear their opinions from time to time, if you don't mind.
Indeed. Now, in fact, I appreciate your thoughts on the subject and the suggestion you just concluded when you said, see, the reason why I choose a few, perhaps you may feel I'm choosing a few from the host of others, is because others actually are part of a journey which they attend other classes during the course of the week. In fact, they attend 3 other classes. So the 4th class, I conduct 4 classes a week. And this offering was initially started with for those who are in the US, and those who in different Asia Pacific who can't come for the classes happening here. Like, for example, Harish is attending from Hong Kong. So I'm trying to keep you all engaged because you only come once a week, and others are with me, and I engage them, and I'm very much, and they feel as welcomed as you all, and it's a journey we are all in. So it's not a preference over one or the other, but this is the only reason I tend to do, So in this class, I give a preference to those who are coming only once a week. Like, for example, I don't see you rest of the week. So I try to engage you more. That's the only reason.
Maybe that men needs to know more than women do, perhaps.
Yeah, men need to know a lot more. We don't know. The only thing is we think we know, isn't it?
I find the same, sir.
Right. Thank you very much. Right. So the point I'm still looking why he compares a spiritual man to a mad person. I think I've been of late seeing Rashmi. Are you right?
Yeah,
Are you
namaste.
Namaskaram. So I've been of late seeing you at the classes. I suppose you're new to the fold.
Yeah, I joined recently your group.
Right.
I'm glad to be.
Most welcome. Any idea?
One thing, what I feel is that our mind blocks the energy. So if our mind is clear, it is full of energy. So your question is, why is a spiritual man compared to mad person?
Yes.
So in that case, I feel that he is not bound by the duties or responsibilities or.
That's an interesting guess. Interesting attempt, I should say. So a mad fellow has no obligation. So therefore, spiritual people also no obligation.
Yeah. Not like that. He is not concerned about what others think.
That's a nice point. Yeah, I would never have thought of that. Yes, so he's not bothered of what the world thinks or says about him. He's in his
No,
right. One of the things. Yeah, it could be. It could be. You're right. Good. Very good. Yes, ma. Lovely. Any comments? Yeah, JPK Rao garu. Chepan sir.
Jai Gurudev.
Namaskaram. Yes.
Namaskar. See, one drunken man sees the Ramana Maharshi all the time. He's such a kick he has got, whereas he thinks that, I am taking every hour drink, but it gets, the kick goes off. He asked Ramana Maharshi, please tell me that what drink which can give me such a anand, which you are having all the time. I'm observing since a long time.
Okay.
So that is the way between the Maharshi and the common man. Don't understand. So Ramana Maharshi is dwelling all the time with the knowledge which, about the Bhagavan, what he says and what he has. He is fully is like a Suputra. He follows him thoroughly. Whatever he has given that knowledge, it dwells in that. So always is that Ananda. That is not like, bodily. This fellow is body conscious is having, whereas he is having soul conscious, which dwells the whole full energy, and that is Brahmananda. That is Brahmananda. That is the difference between both. As a child also, when the parents, they throw him in the air and he laughs at. The child laughs at because he knows that the parents, they are going to catch him as mother or father when they throw him in the air. That is but whereas if someone throws, we may get heart attack. That is the difference between the belief and trust between that is like the child having the parents that they are going to catch. That's he never has a fear that he is going to fall. Whereas same the person who is trusted, the God who has the trust. So
fair enough. Appreciate. Right, very good. Yes.
Very good.
Namaskar. Right. Yeah, Rajima?
A madman seems that he's in his own world, and a saint would be as though he's in his own world as well, in self-inquiry. Would that be a reason, Guruji?
Yeah, that could be a very valid reason. You're right. Yes. Yeah, Kamalji.
Okay. What I think is the madman is living with us, like as his feet are grounded with us, but his head is high above. Like he's thinking egoless, like he's beyond merit and demerit. And we cannot reach his thoughts. To us, it looks like he's different person, like a mad person, because we cannot reach that high level of thoughts as he's reveling.
Beautifully said. In fact, he is with you, and yet he is not with you because you don't have access to his realm. May not be higher. Madman is in his own world. Don't know where his thoughts are, what he's pondering over. You have no access to it. You can't. You have no cognition to it. In exactly that sense, a spiritual man wines with you, dines with you. He does everything possible with you, but you don't have access to his realm of experience. He's reveling in the higher. So that aspect of it is compared when you say a madman. We have no access to that realm of experience, but he's very much with you. Perhaps that aspect, and if there's anything more, you can always take into account. Okay. And then beyond the context of the verse, there's another often referred comparison. They say a spiritual man is also like Pishachavat. Pishachavat means he's like a ghost. I can't ask anybody other than Arpitji this question. I don't know. Don't ask me why I say so, but I just feel so. Sometimes when you feel, you don't give reasons. So don't ask me reasons. It's my feeling that says so. So there ends the analysis on that point. Yes, the answer, please. So I don't give a chance, isn't it?
This is like an exam for, open book exam, and the answer is nowhere in the book. That's not very fair, Guruji. Hari Om, by the way. I neglected last time to pay my respects.
No problem. Not at all. Not at all.
So, like a ghost, I'm only guessing at this stage because I really don't have the answer. But there's this sense that it's a sense of his everywhereness. He seems to be everywhere, has that perspective on everything, and just sort of appears out of, nowhere, and whether it's someone like yourself or other folks we've heard and listened, and certainly the gurus and teachers that have written this, there's this everywhere aspect, this omnipresent aspect to them, much like a ghost.
Oh, do you mean to say ghosts are everywhere roaming around?
As a comparison.
That is a comparison. I'm saying there are many spiritual men, great souls around us. You mean to say ghosts are everywhere around me, and you may say so. One ghost is sitting with me in the room. You may say so, but don't say so.
I'm not comparing you to the ghost.
No.
I told you I couldn't win this one.
No, I'm with you on that. In fact, on discussion, because he's comparing a spiritual man to be like a ghost. Now, what is an attribute of a ghost? That's where we need to get a cue from.
It's something that's beyond this world, a ghost.
No, you may say so. You're not wrong when you say that. But
whether you believe it in or not, as it's depicted, it's depicted.
It's not whether it is real or unreal. You may say, "Oh, ghost is just a myth. There's no ghost anywhere." If only you see it and I don't see it, then it's not the reality. If there's a reality, everybody must see it, isn't it? You may argue with it. I'm not getting into that discussion. But the moment I talk of ghosts, what happens? Instantly there's a fear, isn't it? Yeah. Like you watch these, what do you call these movies? Horror movies. Horror movies. I tell you, if you want to, any one of you, I want to kill me, put me in a theater in a horror movie. Afterward, you can remove my body. I can't. Okay, but that doesn't make you any more spiritual. Huh? Don't try to go
No,
along
no,
with
no,
Guru
no,
here.
no, absolutely.
I know you're master planning here, because the
Yeah,
text is also saying, Guru also saying, therefore I am also like you.
There's no master plan.
I don't know. I'm just trying to be very, very careful, because you can't just establish things like that.
Did
Now,
Srini join it? Srini join? No.
I know you're feeling very insecure. I know. You need some
I
help.
am. No, see, part of this is because we haven't met in person yet. I know you said that a long time ago about Sriniji, and so there's that. We've got to fix that at some point.
We all will. That meeting has to happen when I am also there in the picture. Huh? So till then, please hold on to that. Okay. So very right. So when you associate fear, to a ghost. Now, what is the fear you relate to a spiritual man? What is the fear you associate to a spiritual man? Srinivas Reddy Garu, what is the fear with a spiritual man?
No, I couldn't get Pranam Guruji.
Yes.
When we're talking ghost, in my view, is the ghost, when we compare, is a formless. And the moment we heard about a ghost, the fear comes in the mind.
Yes.
But when we correlate these two factors with a spiritual man is with a form. It's not that formless. But when we talk about the fear, maybe he's free from all the bondages and mental agony, so that he's a fearless.
Sorry, because of?
He's free from the mental bondages, so he's a fearless.
No, we are not talking about him. When we approach a ghost, we are in fear. Why is there fear in our hearts when we approach a spiritual man? It's from our perspective, not their perspective. That's how you must view it. You get it? But I would not take the first part of the comparison, because you say ghosts they don't have a form. Again, that becomes ridiculous to say a guru doesn't have a form. So therefore, it becomes beyond the perspective or scope of the example. Okay, Ji?
That's true.
Right? But if you can think in lines that when I approach a ghost, there is fear, or thought of a ghost, there's fear. So when I approach a spiritual man, there is an element of fear in him. Talk of the ghost, it appears.
No, Guruji.
Srinivas Garu, you have been the reality so far, and the ghost Srinivas Kumar has appeared.
Pranam Guruji.
Pranam. You have to do Koti Pranam now, because we've been all the time, whole past 45 minutes only been talking about you.
Last 15 minutes I listened. I had a conflict, which I left, and I listened to it in the car.
Oh, were you
but
there?
I enjoyed the discourse between you and Arpit Ji. So please continue that.
So there you go. So here is someone who's following it. So I suppose then you followed the concept of a child, the madman, and now you're with me on the concept of the ghost. Any thoughts?
No, I was where Raji was, where Raji Ji was saying, not because she's my elder sister-in-law, but I think I was exactly where she was, that you are there was a fervor of you being attached to the Atman or the Brahman or whatever. So it's like the madman equivalent. That's where I had, but I couldn't make the connection. That's why I asked the question. Why is that verse distorted or questioning like a madman? And I couldn't make the connection.
But does that resonate now? How we clarified that aspect of a madman? He is in a realm you don't have access to. See, a madman, he's amongst you, as Kamalji had put it. His feet is grounded, means he's physically amongst you. You can have a person who is not mentally sane. So he is with you, but he is in a realm, he's in a world mentally you have no access to. You don't know what's happening in his mind. Similarly, you don't know what happens to where is the mind, what are his thoughts, especially when you have the proximity of being with a guru, and they're very quiet at times. And you just look at them and say, wonder. I remember me once asking my guru, we were on a long drive in Malaysia, and it was he and me only. And we were going long drive and we were quiet. We were listening to some music, we were talking, and then a certain stretch we were quiet. And then I just asked him, Swamiji, what is it that keeps going in your mind? He didn't answer that question. Still, it's bothering me. His mind is somewhere. God knows. He can't. You don't have access to it. That's all he said. He didn't say that. He just kept quiet. He didn't answer that. It's the casual question I posed to him. So you don't have access to. Like even if two people are with, you don't know what that person is thinking, isn't it? He is sitting next to you. Suddenly, sometimes you ask your partner also, hey, where are you lost? What are you thinking? Because you don't have access to others' thoughts, much so the realm of the worlds which these great men are lodged onto. That's the aspect of the madman, which is distinct from the ghost, which is rather unique, but it is very interesting. Once you get to the clarity of it, it's very interesting. Why is there a fear in me when I approach a ghost, which is drawn parallel to there's a fear I experience when I'm in company of a pure soul, of a spiritual man who is divine, which shouldn't be the case. That's the interesting study. All right, Sriniji. Okay.
Got it.
Just hold on.
Got it.
Vijayji wants to say anything. Yes, Vijayji.
Pranam Guruji. I was just thinking that we are very uncomfortable with what we don't understand and what we can't predict and what we can't put in our mental framework, which becomes akin to fear. I mean, what we can't control or what we can't predict. The actions of a madman and as well as a ghost is very difficult to predict or understand. So that possibly is the attribute of fear in both cases.
I wouldn't mix up the madman in the context. If you can just, could you kindly repeat what you said with reference to the ghost, please?
In both cases, we do not understand, nor can we predict. The most important thing is predict as to what the reaction is going to be. Because madman does not have past, he does not have ego, he just does what he feels like without any shackles. And that is something which I think we are uncomfortable with. And a ghost, of course, apart from the other proverbial fear which we have, which is something which is beyond our imagination.
I will seriously take the one word you used, uncomfortable, because it gives me a cue to expand on it and what I'm trying to get at. But I agree with you. I agree with you that to what you say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Vijayji. Yeah, Kamalji, I know you've been wanting to say something. Sorry, I just want to get different people engaged. That's about all.
Yeah, no, you should give everybody a chance.
No, but I also request you if you can just, use the feature to raise the hand, and then you can be rest assured, I can give you the opportunity to say whatever you wish to communicate. But please, I think you've been muted again. Could you unmute yourself? Hanji, boliye.
So I was thinking that maybe the realized person or the person who has achieved the yoga is fearless in his nature. And he moves around without any fear because he's not attached to his body, or he's not afraid of death, or he's Brahman. And so he's fearless in his movement. And so that is similar probably to the ghost, which is formless and moves around without any obstruction or something like that.
Now, as I had clarified the the approach to this question should be from our perspective, not their perspective. We experience fear. It's not the question of whether they are fearless. It's we experience fear.
Yeah,
right?
we experience fear because when we see realized person going around everywhere, you know, like we don't feel comfortable or feel fear kind of thing. And same way as we would feel fear with the ghost.
Okay, I agree. All right, I'm looking for more. Setuji, you have a point actually. I would like to hear from you, Setuji.
Hariom Guruji.
Hariom, sir.
Yeah, he is pure. We are impure. So we are. He can read us. We are guilty, and he is saint. So we are. See, we will be hypocrites, and we may pose some question. He knows what we are thinking and what we are. So we have to respect him, and we have to be at a distance from him.
In fact, you have nailed it. In fact, when you commented in the chat box, I knew you got it. What makes one fearful of a spiritual man is a spiritual man is always upholding his conscience. they're living the life of truth or satyam. And since we are not able to uphold that satyam, we are not able to live a life of truthfulness. We are not able to uphold our conscience. There is a fear in us when we are amongst them, because just like dirt is in where there is light splashed, imperfection gets highlighted on if I have a white canvas behind, even a purest white canvas, and even a few spots become instantly visible because of the canvas. Backdrop is pure milky white. And if you were to think of them as people who are the highest conscience and upholding the greatest truth, and if we are against them, everything we do becomes glaringly imperfect. So there is a conflict of our own conscience. So we feel we are not being true. So there is a certain fear. There is a certain discomfort we feel, an uncomfortable feeling, a certain insecurity we have amongst them. Not that they created, it's a feeling within. So the more we are true to ourselves, the more we are true to our conscience, the more we uphold the life of satyam, we feel very comfortable with them. But if you're feeling a certain discomfort, is because you are not being true to yourself. And as they are true to themselves, or they are upholding the life of satyam, there is like if I have something mischievous thought, I feel insecure within me, isn't it? I want to do something wrong. I want to, I have a bad motive. I can't be doing it with great conviction. There's a certain, am I being watched? Am I being watched? But you're just doing nothing wrong. What's there to be being watched? There's the fear disappears from the mind, doesn't it? Like when you want to steal a document from your office, an important document. Are you not watching? Am I being watched? Are there any cameras anywhere? Because you want to steal. You want to go about doing your job. Why are you bothered if there are cameras or people around you? There is no fear at all. Because you know you're doing the wrong thing, instantly fear comes. And that fear gets highlighted in the presence of a spiritual soul, because he is truth personified. And that gives that little insecurity in our hearts, a little fear. That could be one perspective. I know not if there is any other aspect that been compared to a ghost, but it's a very interesting comparison though. Very, very interesting comparison. All okay, Sriniji? Any concern? Good. Ramji, you're able to follow all the three aspects? Can you just quickly sum up the three aspects, please, for us before we move on?
Hari Om Guruji.
So
three aspects. One is comparison to the child. Child has no entanglements, no worries, no anxiety, and also he surrenders to the parents' protection. So he is completely free from any anxiety. He is energetic, enthusiastic, mentally free, and so he is able to show that energy and enjoyment of what he's doing. That is on the child.
Now, when you extend that from a perspective in our lives, what does that translate to? When a child is energetic, obviously is running around. But when you translate that in our lives with reference to the action, what happens to the action?
So when you actually, when we act without entanglements and when we act without fear, because we know that we are under the we are under the protection of someone up there, and we work without worries and anxiety, then we get that energy of a child to do the right things.
So can we say that actions become dynamic?
Yeah.
Your actions are very potent. Your actions are powerful.
Yeah. Very energetic and potent, and yeah.
Remember, other day we were saying in the workshop that work can never tire you.
Yeah.
What tires you is your worries and anxieties. So if that tire aspect is taken out of the equation, you can continuously, you become industrious, you become very productive, you become very efficient in terms of work. There's enough energy at your disposal, which the child has.
Correct.
Because the worry element and the energy, the dissipating elements of worries and anxieties are clipped. You clip these avenues. So you're only in the present, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Ji. So that's extension to the work, to our lives. Okay. Ramji, just hold on. Don't mute yourself, please. I think Vijayji wants to comment something.
Guruji, doesn't it also not imply that the child's action is impulsive without too much of an element of intellect? I don't expect the child to have do that. I'm only saying in terms of what we would like to do in terms of acting with intellect to have the maximum, effectiveness or not being impoverished. Whereas a child is impulsive. Doesn't think. Good for
in fact, if we heard what Surendraji, when he commented, he said there's a difference between being childlike vis-a-vis being childish. Yeah. So that again goes beyond the purview of the comparison. We would be demeaning the stature of a spiritual man of maturity to a childish act or an impulsive act or a reckless act. We can't do that. Then we are actually tarnishing the image here by saying so, isn't it?
No, I'm not belittling what the
correct.
What I mean is that it hasn't had a time. There are lots of good aspects of not having a past or not worrying about future and correct. Just doing it and concentrating on what you want to do.
Correct.
However, the impulsive acts are not thought out. I suppose it's a limited example. I should not stretch it and leave it.
No, sir. In fact, no, it's not this. As I've said, in principle, an example is limited. We should understand. Beyond a point, we will not be able to do justice to the concept. Because example is only limited. You only take those aspects. Therefore, we are very careful which to take. Then it goes into, as you have said, a child is impulsive and then he's... no thought behind his acts. He gets into trouble. Is it the same case of a spiritual man? A true spiritual man doesn't get into. But the so-called spiritual self-acclaimed gurus have got into serious trouble because they have no buddhi. They have called themselves godly. Therefore, they got into trouble. So we have got nothing to do with that. We are talking of true spiritual gurus. There's chalk and cheese between them. Okay, Ji.
A lot of ego involved there anyway.
Yeah, that is, let them deal with it. Nabal can have. What have we got to do with their egos? Okay, Ji. Right. Ramji.
So the next one is a comparison to a madman. So madman is in his own realm or world or thoughts. Although he's physically with us, we don't have access to his mind. So that is the situation of a spiritual person also. So that the person is in his own world, although he's physically among us, and yes. We really don't access his mind. Okay. I think in terms of work, I can only say that perhaps someone who is so immersed in work, in his work, is always in that zone, as we call it, a zone. So if you are in the zone of focus and concentration, and you are so focused on what you are doing, then you become like you are mad into that work. I mean, you are actually so deep into that you don't look at here and there, and you are in your own world. You are in your own world.
Correct.
That's what happens with the big, great scientists or great people who are so focused on their work. Even a big scientist is like a madman. If you see, even because they are so deeply engrossed in their work and their own zone.
Very true. Excellent. And lastly,
a spiritual person is like a ghost who invokes fear because of the differential in the knowledge levels and the differential in the level of maturity, or differential level in the level of purity between the spiritual man and ourselves. That is the thing which invokes fear in us, because we fear that we look impure or we look pale in front of him, or he can read our deficiencies and things like that. So that is what happens with a spiritual person, like a ghost. He lives the life of truth, and we are not in that same level. So we fear that he will be able to make out that difference, and we fear our own deficiencies in his presence. So
perfect.
I have to find an application in actual life. Perhaps in each field also there are very highly knowledgeable people, and when you are in their presence many times, like if you are a normal scientist and you meet Einstein, for example, okay, so there is a difference between the two. So the normal scientist may fear that presence of Einstein because of the just difference in the levels of their maturity in their own science.
Yeah.
Or it can happen with an expert in a particular field, and a learner in that field may feel that fear when he meets an expert.
Perhaps a doctor, a student of medicine, who's doing internship, and he's amongst a great surgeon. You know,
correct.
They are so mindful, watchful what they say, what they do, because they're amongst a giant in their own field, isn't it?
Exactly.
Very good. Very goodly, in a great way you have captured it. But when you mentioned about the great men invoke fear in us, it should not be construed or misconstrued that
not negative.
It's not that they unsettle us. In fact, they make us feel comfortable with our imperfections and strive to be better.
Absolutely.
It's their love and compassion that helps us to be close to them and yet learn from them. Not that they are so daunting a personality that you become uncomfortable. In fact, they are so welcoming, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, Guruji, I should add that I met many experts in fields, especially in my field, management field, and some of the greatest people are very humble. Actually, they're so full of humility, and they make you feel comfortable in their presence. That shows their maturity. So they try to bring down your fear, actually, and they make you feel comfortable.
Yeah, they make you at ease, because you are so awed by their stature, and you feel they're so down to earth, isn't it? That's nice. That's a very good conclusion to that, beautiful conclusion to that verse. In fact, I think great justice.